Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Wealth Building Wednesday, where we answer your money questions with style and grace. To ask your question, go to buildingwealthtogether.com and click Ask JJ or leave a voicemail at 1-833-4-ASK-JJC. Normally we'd answer questions, but today we've got some wealth building teaching instead.
Today's Building Wealth Together podcast is part one of a two-part interview with someone who has been helping people build wealth for decades. Learn more and catch the rest of the series at buildingwealthtogether.com. I am honored to introduce to you Dr. George C. Fraser. He is the chairman and CEO of FraserNet Incorporated, a company he founded 32 years ago to lead a global networking and economic development movement for people of African descent. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he was an orphan and foster child for 15 years. He spent 20 years in leadership positions with Procter & Gamble, United Way, and Ford Motor Company before starting his own business in 1987. He's written 6 best-selling books to include Success Runs in Our Race, Click, and most recently, Mission Unstoppable, Extraordinary Stories of Failure's Blessings, a book he co-authored with Les Brown. Upscale magazine named him one of the top 50 power brokers in Black America, and Black Enterprise magazine called him Black America's #1 networker and featured him on its cover. Dr. Fraser has been featured on 7 national magazine covers and has received over 350 awards and citations to include induction into the Minority Business Hall of Fame and Museum, 3 honorary doctorate degrees, a chaplaincy, and an ambassadorship. Well, I'm super excited today to have this conversation with one of the most impressive individuals that's made a difference in my community, the Black community. His name is Dr. George Fraser. And as you've seen in the intro, he has got a phenomenal list of accolades behind his name. But most importantly to me, as a Black woman, Black mother, and community leader, is that he continues to give to the communities that are near and dear to his heart. And today we're going to talk about why we as Black people need to globally hyper focus on economic development, or else we are headed into a second slavery. And Dr. Fraser, I am so excited to have you here with me today. And I am, when I saw this topic and I thought, this is the man that we need to have discuss it. I look at all the economic reports. I look at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. I look at the Census Bureau. I look at all the indicators that tell me Black wealth is declining. And that matters to me as a Black mother, a Black mom, a Black financial planner. And so I am so honored that you're here with us today. Thank you for being here at Building Wealth Together.
Well, it's an honor to sit before you. I celebrate and honor the work that you're doing. I love your theme, building wealth together, because that's how we're going to build wealth. I love your spirit. I love your deep commitment to not only our people, but to educating the world about this thing called power. And money is power. Whenever you hear the word power, JJ, convert that into your mind as money, right? Money. Certainly, knowledge is power effectively utilized, but and money isn't everything. Let's be clear on that. But it's right up there with oxygen and water. All right. Try to live with either one of those. Without either one of those, and you're in serious trouble. So, thank you for having me.
When we think about money being power, and we think about the fact that many of us in our communities have felt powerless for so long, it makes me think about how you often talk about the struggle and the debt that we owe. Could you unpack your perspective on that just a little bit?
Yeah. So I want to say this and still be loved to my brothers and sisters. We are all drinking from wells that we did not dig, that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. a 400-year fight, a 400-year fight. So we're talking at 5 generations per 100 years. We're talking 20 generations of work. A 250-year fight from 1619 to 1864. 1619 to 1864, 250-year fight for our freedom. A 100-year fight for civil rights, voting rights, and public access from 1864 to 1964, a 100-year fight, right, for civil rights, voting rights, and public access. We must never, ever forget what our forefathers and ancestors have done for us. Therefore, the bigger question when we think about our struggle is, are we worthy of that legacy? That's a deep question. Are we worthy of that at least 350-year fight? And if you feel that we're worthy of that legacy, a deeper question, JJ, would be, what will be our legacy? What will be the legacy of Generation X, Y, and Z and Generation Alpha? The legacy of baby boomers, and I'm the oldest of the baby boomers. The youngest of the baby boomers are in their 50s. Our legacy is civil rights, voting rights, and public access. That's what we participated in as, let us say, elders. So what will the legacy be of Generation X, Y, and Z and Generation Alpha? What will our children's children be saying about them 150 years from now? I hope their legacy will be closing the income and wealth gap between us and them. It's a massive gap. It will take multiple generations to close if we start now. And I hope it will be the legacy of Generation X, Y, and Z, because we are blazing the path and trail to do this. And we're passing it on to them, because this is a marathon. This is not a 100-yard dash. And I hope that that will be their legacy, because our legacy cannot end with the civil rights struggle, right? So one of my favorite quotes as an old schooler, watching Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King growing up as a child, learning at their feet and listening to them. I loved Stokely Carmichael for his brazenness, for his risk-taking, for his masterful articulation of ideas, his speaking skills. He was obviously well read. But there was one thing he said, this is back in 1962, that stuck with me for my entire life. And I'm going to quote him so I don't misquote him. Stokely Carmichael said, "No Black person in this country makes an advancement solely based on his or her talent or worth. All individual advancement is based on mass struggle. We make no progress in this world without shedding our blood. Therefore, your advancement and success does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. So if you do not use your success or advancement for the benefit of your people, it's a betrayal of the people that shedded their blood for you." Well, obviously, I took that to heart. And so did you. And he was exactly right. We must model the excellence that we expect from our people. And by the way, whenever we say Black excellence, you got to put 2.0 on it. Black excellence, the next level of Black excellence, which is Black exceptionalism, because we have to be exceptional. My parents taught me many years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. They said, Georgie boy, you're going to have to be twice as good to get half as much, because if you're black and mediocre in America, you better leave, because you're going to be marginalized and you're ultimately going to be destroyed. We cannot be average. They can be average. We saw that with the presidency of Donald Trump, who was elected by this country to be leader of the free world. And we're talking about a below average human being, right? As compared to Barack Hussein Obama, magna cum laude graduate of Harvard. If Barack Hussein Obama had done 1/100th or said 1/1000 of what Donald Trump had said or done, he wouldn't have been elected a freaking dog catcher in America, let alone leader of the free world. So we have to be excellent. We have to model that. We must model the behavior that we expect from our people. We must help our people understand that we must connect, we must grow, we must prosper, so that we can learn, so that we can earn, so that we can return. We must take responsibility, JJ, for saving us and our children, because no one is going to save us but us. It's been 400 years and we ain't saved. So we are the people we have been waiting for. So I think one of the top priorities of all responsible people of color, black and brown people of color that has made it, is to save one black child other than your own. If you're not doing right by your children, well, you're out of that equation. But if you're doing right by your children, save one black child other than your own. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, get them in and out of high school. I didn't say college, high school, with a diploma, no criminal record, and no child. Do those three things, and you will lay the foundation for the rest of their life. Save one black child other than your own. Recycle our dollars. That would be number two. Our money goes in one direction away from us. We are America's most conspicuous consumers. We are the consumption class. They are the merchant class. They make stuff, we buy stuff. We're going to have to flip the script on that, okay? We're going to have to become a merchant class. I'm praying by the end of the 21st century that we will be the #1 employers of our own people. And every immigrant group, JJ, that has ever come to this country has understood that, but black people, right? Jews are the #1 employer of Jews, Asians are the #1 employer of Asians, East Indians are the #1 employer of East Indians, Arabs the #1 employer of Arabs. We too must become the #1 employer of our own peoples. We must create work and jobs for our people, because that's the only way to raise up the poor. Now, my generation, or my mother and father's generation, the greatest generation, made a fundamental mistake in raising baby boomers. You know what that mistake is? You know what the mantra was while I was being raised? There were 11 of us, 8 boys and 3 girls. The mantra beaten into us by our parents with love: get a good education and get a good job, preferably a good government job. And that's exactly what we did. And that's why 95% of us are employed, right? We did what our parents wanted us to do. But that's not what I've done with my 2 sons. I have told them to get a good education without question and create a job. Create a job for yourself, create a job for your children, and if God gives you the power and the glory, create work and jobs for our people. It's a different mantra, a different time. And I think Generation X, Y, and Z and Generation Alpha is picking up on that. And then finally, as Stokely Carmichael talked into us, we must connect the dots. We must leverage more effectively our collective resources and intellectual capital, right? It is not so much that we are dispersed, I live in Cleveland, you live wherever you live. We have people and relatives all over this country, all over the Pan-African diaspora. Dispersion is okay, but disconnection is disruptive and destructive. So we must learn how to effectively network and leverage more effectively our collective resources and intellectual capital. Those are the three big pieces to addressing what I call the 21st and 22nd century struggle of Black people. I'm sorry it took a long time, or longer than I wanted, but I wanted to get it out in a complete form. I didn't want to just sort of gloss over it because it's a wonderful question. It's an important question, and it needs to be put and embedded into our conscious and subconscious mind.
Absolutely, sir. And when you say that, I think about my 23 years in the Air Force and how I did exactly what my mother told me to do. Get good grades, get a scholarship, go to college so you can get a good government job. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm thankful it lifted me up to a level economically, but it did not lift me up to the abilities of the talents and the resources that are within me and within my collective people. So this is absolutely what we needed to hear.
Yeah, beautifully said. And you're exactly right. And I love you for saying that. But it's okay. You survived it. I survived it. I spent 20 years in public and private sector employment before I sort of came to my senses. And I wouldn't trade that experience, to be honest with you, for anything, because it taught me discipline. I was sitting at the feet of masters of branding and selling, and with Procter & Gamble, United Way, and the Ford Motor Company. So I learned a lot. I wouldn't trade that for anything. But it certainly did not provide me the opportunity to maximize my full human potential, not the way in which God wanted me to. So, kudos to you. And I know serving in the armed forces for that amount of time, the minimally you learn discipline and structure and organization and order, right? And obedience. Very important. Very important fact is, as you well know, as a masterful teacher of building wealth, that those are some of the qualities that you must have to become rich.
Right.
Amen.
That's right. Well, and if those are some of the qualities that we must have to become rich, you mentioned earlier that we have some pretty bad habits as a culture when it comes to building wealth. Would you like to expound on that over your decades of experience?
Yes. Thank you for the question. That's a softball question. Thank you. Yes. I'm going to put it in order. Number one, as far as I'm concerned, and it relates to an article published in the Wall Street Journal about 6 years ago. And the article simply stated in the headline that financial illiteracy is an American problem. That was the essence of the article. And of course, I read into that, if financial illiteracy is an American problem, and we know that when white folks catch a cold, Black people catch pneumonia, right? Financial illiteracy for us, right, is an extraordinarily complex and difficult problem. So I want to say this again and still be loved. Fundamentally, we are a financially illiterate people, right? We don't really know what to do. Our parents didn't teach us what to do. I mean, at our dinner table back in the day, ain't nobody talking about money. In fact, you might have been smacked upside your head if you start talking about money with your parents. They did not have that conversation, which leads to the second bad habit we have. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about money at home. We don't talk about money in school. We don't talk about money in church, in spite of the fact that 2,500 references in the Bible to economics and money. right? 11 of Jesus's parables were about economics and money. So we don't talk about money. We are changing that. Now we are talking, my children are talking about money more now than ever before, certainly than in my generation. So that's the second very bad habit that we have. Now, the third and final is that we are addicted to instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And you know, as a wealth consultant, wealth building is fundamentally about delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. It's because the goal, JJ, is to win, not to look like we're winning. As I've said a million times, I would rather carry a plastic bag with $5,000 in it than to carry a $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag with $100 in it. You just look like you're winning. You ain't winning. Louis Vuitton is winning. Gucci is winning. Armani is winning. Nike is winning. Y'all ain't winning. Okay? They're winning. So that's on us. And so we have to morph to understanding that building wealth takes patience, takes discipline, takes time. And that is what is required. And so we have to rid ourselves of that habit. This is easy to say. We all know why we do this, right? We have 350 years of a psychological holocaust, second to none in the history of humankind. This is why we mitigate risk. We were very liberal when it comes to social policy, but we're very, very conservative when it comes to money. We operate out of fear and scarcity, and we understand that because for 350 years we were fearful because we had little and things were scarce, and so we played our cards close to the chest, and we built that mindset in consciously and subconsciously for years and generations. So we have to fix this, and this is on us, and getting rid of those three habits. There are other habits, but those are the big three. Educate yourself about money. There's no excuse today, right? There are webinars that are free. We put on a webinar 3 times a week called the Generational Wealth Alliance. It's all free. All we talk about is money and business. That's all we talk about. If people want to know how to be invited to that meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock, just email me at gfraser@frasernet.com, gfraser@frasernet.com, and I'll send you the link. It's Thursday. And then every week we talk about a specific area of crypto. We'll talk about that later. So those I think are the 3 habits we have to get over. And I think we can, and I think we will. And I see good signs in the younger generations in front of us. Well, thank you.
That's wonderful, because that you see the signs of the younger generation, because as a consultant, I get a lot of people complaining about millennials and Gen Z, and it's like, well, my son and his generation, they're inquisitive. They want to understand what's going on, and they kind of look at the mistakes of the parents as far as being chained to a business or somebody else's job for 30 years, and they're questioning the validity of those things, and they're looking to chart their own path that actually gives them stability and allows them to create, not just consume. So this has been wonderful. Now you've talked to us about the need to be socially responsible, to realize that our progress is made on the back of our race, and that we have a debt that we owe. And you've talked to us about some of the bad habits that we tend to have as a people, whether some of that's been kind of a cultural and historical remnant that we need to overcome or not. It's still our responsibility to overcome. You have you have had a economic get well prescription for many years. So can you talk a little bit about, given these things that are plaguing our communities, how do we get well economically?
Yeah. I'm going to make this as simple as possible because I believe that complexity is the enemy of execution. Complexity is the enemy of execution. So let's keep this simple, right? Let's keep it very simple. I have something called the 5 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth. So for those of you who are watching, write these pillars down. I'm not going to unpack them all because this particular thing is an entire talk by itself. So I'm going to give a 30,000-foot view of the 5 pillars for the intergenerational transfer of wealth. The first pillar is the proper management of accumulated wealth, right? Of accumulated wealth, proper management of accumulated. So we can stop reading about entertainers and athletes who earn millions of dollars in their career. By the time they're ready to retire, they have millions, but within 5 or 6 years, they're either broke or in bankruptcy. That is the improper management of accumulated wealth. Now, what is the essence of that? Well, it's simple. I am a subject matter expert on networking. I've written 6 best-selling books on the subject. I am a subject matter expert only recently in economic development and wealth creation, but only recently. But for years, I was not a subject matter expert in economic development and wealth creation until I woke up and learned, in a sense, the tricks of the trade. So what did I do when I was not a subject matter expert, but really well known on how to build effective relationships? I found a brother, and there were sisters. This was 45 years ago, JJ, who was a certified financial planner. He had spent 25 years understanding the effective management of money. I understood the effective management and the building of relationships. I did not have the skills he had, and I had spent years developing those skills. He spent years developing money management skills. So I hired him to manage my money. He looked like me and my family. He gave me some of the best advice, some of the greatest guidance, some of the deepest understanding of what to do and what not to do. And remember, this is over 40 years ago, that set me on a path to earn literally millions of dollars. And I'm not bragging, I am just saying. So what's the point, brothers and sisters? Do what you're excellent at. The key to success is to be an inch wide and a mile deep in your subject matter expertise, and then be a mile wide and an inch deep in matters of the world. So you can talk about something other than sports, the weather, entertainment, and what's going on in Real Housewives of Atlanta. But when it comes to managing your money, unless you are trained in that, unless you have studied that, unless you are educated in that, find a brother or sister that looks like you and hire them to do that. And by the way, there are over 50,000 of them with every kind of financial service license that you can imagine. Manage your money properly, but find someone that knows the proper management of money to help you do it. That's the advice I give you. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, real estate. What's the first thing God gave Adam? Real estate. What's the first thing God gave Isaac, I should say? Real estate. Real estate. They ain't making anymore. I earned my first fortune 40 years ago buying up 2-family and 3-family homes. There was a Slavic neighborhood, the Buckeye area of Cleveland, Ohio, that was turning black. They did not want to live with African Americans. So they were selling their homes at pennies on a dollar. Pristine, beautiful homes, well kept. I bought 7 of them in a row. I bought one family first, and then that family told, their extended family, and I bought all those houses. I turned them into Section 8 housing because they were the best. You were getting the largest amount of money for rent if you had Section 8 approval. I scoured Cleveland for the best tenants I could find, and then I made a deal with them. Take care of this like this is your home, because someday it might be, because I'm going to accelerate the depreciation on the ownership of these homes, right? And within 7 to 10 years, I am going to turn these homes over. I'm going to resell them, and you will have first option to buy. And I took care of them, and they took care of me. When I sold those homes, I made a fortune. The tax savings that I got out of this real estate over a decade, or almost down to 0 taxes, right? So real estate is what I'm saying to you. All right, one of the cornerstones of all wealth for certainly the average person is home ownership, right? There are over 2 million Black people in America worth $400,000 or more. Most of that is tied up in what, JJ? Real estate, the value of their home. So real estate is the second pillar for the intergenerational transfer of wealth. First things first, second things never. Start where you can with whatever house you can afford or buy, right? And so one of the tips here, if you want to be rich, your rent or your mortgage should be less than what you make in a week. If there are 2 of you earning, combine what you make in a week, and your rent or mortgage should be about that. This is a financial rule that if you follow it, it will set you on the pathway to wealth. I moved 5 times. Why, Dr. Fraser? Because my wealth grew as my opportunities grew, as our family income grew. So the reason I moved 5 times is because I could afford comfortably more house and in better neighborhoods for better schools. Okay. So, but I kept my income property where I originally began until, of course, I sold it. So real estate is huge. That's the second pillar. The third pillar is business ownership. In America, 2 things are going on 24/7. Somebody's buying and somebody's selling. As I said earlier, we are the consumption class. They are the merchant class. They make stuff, we buy stuff, right? Stop it. Sell something. I think one of your 2022 New Year's resolution should be to start a business. I don't care if it's quarter time, part-time, full-time. If you bake cookies, put them in a box and sell it to somebody. If you live on a farm, take the manure, put it in a bag, put your name on it, and sell it to somebody. You can become an entrepreneur. Okay, stop doing all the damn buying. Do you know that the fertilizer or the manure industry in America is billions of dollars a year? Sell something. You have some expertise. You can sell that expertise, whether it's money management, whether it is knowing how to speak and teaching people how to speak or how to write, or whatever skill you have developed, you can monetize that. Start a business. It does not have to be full-time. That's the third pillar for the intergenerational transfer of wealth. The fourth pillar is proper insurance. I cannot say this enough. An interesting article in the New York Times several years ago on Black people and their cell phones, JJ. And you know what they found? They found that more Black people have insurance on their cell phones and on their lives or the lives of their children by a factor of 10. Right? A GoFundMe plan to bury your mama is not an insurance policy. It's actually embarrassing. Minimally, you should have a policy for what they call, as you well know, final expenses, right? And it's not that expensive. But if you're younger, you should have an index universal life. You can have term. It just depends on what stage you are. But if you use insurance properly, it is phenomenal. I have an insurance license. I've studied it. I'm licensed in it. I don't sell it, but I just understand how powerful it is. If you use it properly, you can become wealthy just on proper structuring your insurance for you and your children. I have a small index universal life for my grandchildren. I bought it when they were born. Nora Jean and I pay $100 a month. By the time they're ready to retire, they will have $5.5 million. They will be able to take from that policy to pay for their own college if that's what they want. They'll be able to take from that policy to put a down payment on their own home. That costs $100 a month. So this is critically important, proper insurance. If you don't know about it, find a brother or sister that does and be open to it.
Love the podcast? Be sure to like, subscribe, and forward to 3 friends. You can ask a question or take a life-changing class at buildingwealthtogether.com. Now, go walk in abundance and leave a legacy.